Android 17 has arrived, sort of. Section 702 has expired, sort of. And privacy is at a greater risk than ever in Canada. All of this and more is coming up on This Week in Privacy, episode 58. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to This Week in Privacy, our weekly series where we discuss the latest updates with what we're working on within the Privacy Guides community and this week's top stories in data privacy and cybersecurity. I am Nate, and this week with me is Jonah. How are you doing this week, Jonah?
I'm doing great, Nate. It's been a busy week, but I'm glad to be on the show again and doing this with you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you guys for holding down the fort last week. Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our stories right away. Our first story is pretty exciting here, and it is the Android 17 is finally coming out. Well, we'll talk about the graphene stuff in a minute, but first let's talk about what's new in Android 17. So I think it officially came out like Wednesday, maybe Tuesday. Could have been yesterday. I'm really bad with time ever since COVID. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So a lot of the news that I saw personally regarding Android 17 really didn't talk about any of the privacy stuff, but thankfully we have Freya, our staff writer, who was on top of this and went through the announcement and made a list here of the updates that they found. And they did say this may not be everything because, again, there's like the news. Usually the news does focus at least somewhat on the privacy and security stuff. But again, it was kind of scarce this time. But Freya went through and found as much as they could. And there's some exciting stuff. So first up, I don't know if this is in any particular order, but first up, the contact picker, which is very similar to, I would argue, if my timeline is correct, I think Graphene had this first, and then iOS adopted it in iOS 18. But it's basically I believe Graphene calls it the contact scopes. It allows you to tell an app that it can only have permission for certain contacts. This is actually really useful for. I'll give you a real example of this one. Since we do have, we being Privacy Guides and also over at the New Oil, we do have an online presence on platforms we don't necessarily like TikTok, for example. And every time I check TikTok, it bugs me to give it access to my contacts. And so finally I can go in and tell it, or like on an iPhone, I can tell it like, sure, have access, and then just not give it access to anything, and it'll shut up and leave me alone, which is amazing. But it allows for that awesome compartmentalization. There's the local network permission, which was previously opt-in for developers, but now it is required in order to access devices on the local network. Loopback traffic is now blocked between profiles. According to Android Authority, there is an advanced protection mode similar to iOS lockdown mode, and that's actually been out for a while, I think, but now it's getting some new features, including blocking accessibility services for apps that aren't accessibility apps, which is great because I've read in the past that that is a common vector for malicious apps to abuse things, is when they when an app uses accessibility features, it kind of gets extra additional permissions that it wouldn't normally have. So that is really good. You can disable device to device unlocking. So I'm assuming they mean kind of like Android Auto. I've noticed my wife, when she plugs in her phone in the car, even if she doesn't unlock it, it just automatically starts playing music and stuff, which is handy, but it's probably not great for security. Disables web GPU in Chrome, spam detection for chat notifications, which I'm going to assume is AI powered, and support for Android Enterprise for managed devices. It says if apps are granted the SMS permission, they will not have access to one-time codes, which protects you from a malicious app stealing your 2FA login details. Android 17 also has encrypted client hello by default, which is kind of, Jonah can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's kind of similar to encrypted DNS. It's not quite the same, but basically when there's that initial handshake, it just kind of adds a little bit of extra protection. Passwords are fully hidden by default when typing using a physical input device such as a keyboard. Theft protection will be enabled by default on Android 17, which is pretty awesome. They've reduced the number of allowed failed PIN attempts and increased the time between attempts. And you can now grant apps temporary precise location access, which gets revoked when they're closed, and is now adding a hybrid post quantum cryptography for app signing to protect against future threat of quantum computers. And let's see, I think last but not least here, there's a background audio framework to ensure apps playing audio in the background don't make changes to audio that aren't intended by the user. So yeah, pretty hefty list of changes here. And just to kind of address the graphene stuff that we talked about in the headline here. So according to my RSS feed, this just came out today actually. Graphene is notoriously fast at adapting Android and getting it ready for Graphene. They already have an initial release ready of Android 17. Unfortunately, they say there is an upstream Android 17 bug, and updating to this release via ADB sideloading to recovery from a previous release is unavailable. I did not know people did that. I've always been an over-the-air kind of guy, which they say that over-the-air works. But I guess that this is, and they say they're going to address this in a future release. But from what I understand, Jonah was saying he checked this morning and did not see this in the alpha channel on his test device. So it looks like maybe they're kind of holding off to work out some of the final bugs. But technically, it is here. It does exist. It's got boatloads of fixes, as you can see here. The main thing being an update to Android 17, but yeah, so that is on its way, and I don't know that I have too much more to add to that. I'm very excited about this update. I always get it. There's just something exciting about new major releases like this, in my opinion. But it looks like
Yeah.
it's bringing a lot of really cool features. Were there any in particular that stood out to you, or you wanted to
Yeah,
discuss?
there's a kind of a lot to be unpacked here. We can go over the GrapheneOS stuff first. Um, I think they said in their announcement that over-the-air updates will work, but they haven't released them yet. And in my experience, I have GrapheneOS on one of these phones I have on my desk. Yeah, and it's set to the alpha channel, but if I check for updates on 16, it still says device is up to date. So they haven't released that yet. You can't sideload this over an existing install either, as you mentioned. So gotta wait a bit longer for Android 17 on GrapheneOS. They say it was supposed to be out like yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe. They say that it's delayed because of an upstream Android 17 bug. I don't think that they've shared what it is or what the problem is, so don't know too much beyond that, but I guess we'll be waiting a little bit longer for GrapheneOS. But if you want a fresh install for some reason, I assume you can do that with the images that they've posted there. Um, Other stuff that's cool, you mentioned encrypted client hello. For people who don't know what that is, that's basically the connection when you're making an HTTPS connection to a web server, that kind of handshake process where you get the certificate in the first place from that server includes the domain name in plain text. So men in the middle, like your ISP, for example, can see what domain you're connecting to still, which is kind of a that's one way that they can see what domains you're connecting to, even if they can't monitor your DNS traffic because you're using encrypted DNS. So it's a cool feature. It requires support on the web server side as well. So not every site is gonna work with this. Unfortunately, it mainly affects sites that are behind super large CDNs like Cloudflare, for example. Cloudflare is going to support this, and basically any Cloudflare site that you connect to will appear to come from a single Cloudflare domain. If we wanted to set up encrypted client hello for like privacy guides, for example, we could make all privacy guides requests, like the one on our website and the one on or connects or connections to our form. I'll show up with the same domain name, but it would be limited to a domain name that we own. So it's a pretty small bucket, and people would still be able to see you're connecting to privacy guides. Not to mention that, like, your IP address is still going to be the IP address that you're connecting to of the web server will still be visible. So it's good protection. It's good that it's coming, and it does patch, that hole that encrypted DNS doesn't fully patch, but it's not like a perfect solution. If you want to hide all of this traffic from your ISP, it's still recommended to use a VPN, basically. That's my point. Um, Other stuff. The biggest thing I'm excited about, but this is just because I'm a cryptography nerd. I like the whole post-quantum cryptography that they're adding. I have felt recently, especially in like the last year or so, that post-quantum cryptography is becoming much more important, and we need to switch over as much stuff as soon as possible, because even though we're probably years out from it being practical, I think that that period is shorter than a lot of people think. It's probably not going to be like decades away. It might be under a decade at this point. And some recommendations say that we need to switch entirely over by 2030. Some recent advancements that we talked about in the quantum encryption space, I think a couple weeks ago here on the show, but also we talked about it in some news articles on our website. They seem to indicate that the quantum computing field is progressing at a pretty fast rate at this point. So always cool to see more things adopt that. They are going to use it for the Android 17 bootloader. I believe they're already doing it for the verified boot chain. They say that they're going to bring post-quantum cryptography to app signing, so you can sign your apps with that. Since we just released an app at Privacy Guides, the verified apps app with our dataset that we're building, I looked into that, but there are no tools and nothing in the Android 17 public source code that I could find that mention post-quantum cryptography at all. So it's not something we can do yet, but hopefully soon they open that up to developers. Beyond that, I think you kind of covered all the other stuff. I don't know if I have too much to say about any of the other protections, except I think that they're pretty cool. A lot of these were a long time coming, like the contact picker stuff that you mentioned, Nate. So I'm glad that stock Android is finally catching up in some respects to GrapheneOS and into iOS. That's always a good thing to see. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of it though, unless anyone in the chat has anything else they want to know about Android.
Yeah, it's definitely on the contact picker thing. I love the competition. This is one of those areas where like competition is actually really good and helps everyone because now like um it's kind of sad it takes like a small team like Graphene doing it to motivate these big companies. But you know, Graphene will add something and then somebody at iPhone or Apple, I guess, is like, oh, that's pretty cool. We should add that. And now Google's like, crap, now we have to add that. And you know, that's how we ended up with like the and I know they're not perfect, but that's how we ended up like with like the privacy labels and the app stores and how we ended up with uh crap, what was it? Like the privacy dashboards and like screen time and just all these neat little features that are making just making everyone more private because it's I know he didn't come up with it, but Kerry Parker on always says on Firewalls Don't Stop Dragons, like privacy is a team sport. It's a rising tide lifts all ships. When everybody gets more private, that's a net win, regardless. Like, yeah, obviously we want people to switch to something like Graphene and be better, but that still doesn't mean that people don't deserve a better level of privacy when they're on iPhone or stock Android or whatever. So really, really cool stuff. Looking through some of the comments here, Harry Potter says the only thing I care about is dark mode feature. I feel you. I have my phone set to based on whatever the system, and I think I have the system set to. I think I do have set times actually that roughly correspond to when I'm like winding down for bed and when I wake up. But yeah, it's really frustrating when like it's nighttime and I open something and it's not dark mode, or even vice versa. If it's daytime and I open something and it's in dark mode, I'm like, why is it doing this? That's really weird. So, Chubby Wubby here says y'all saw that pixels have gone up in price after the UK announcement. I didn't see that. Did you?
I did not see that either. I just found out about it from this comment. I'd have to look into that, but that is funny. And hopefully that's because people are switching to GrapheneOS, because I think more people are finding out about that sort of thing as these huge restrictions are implemented in all these countries. So that'd be positive, at least.
Yeah, Harry Potter said that here. At least people are getting to know about graphene. The more normal it becomes, the better it is for everyone. I agree because I
Yeah.
remember, I think this was before I joined Privacy Guides, but I remember we covered a story about how in Spain just having a Pixel phone is maybe not enough to get you arrested, but at least like the cops will stop and talk to you because they know about graphene and like only criminals use it over there, which is completely insane. It's like, dude, come on. So yeah. Um, and yeah, I want to address real quick. I know we keep saying side loading. It's a force of habit, and we really shouldn't because yeah, it is. It's one of those very subtle language things. Shout out to 1984 for anyone who's read that, but it's kind of like a like changing the language to make it sound like it's something super techy or not authorized. Like, oh, you're kind of like tinkering with your device, but it's like, yeah, you don't sideload something onto Windows, you just install it. So
Although I will say, in our defense in this case, I believe the command is adb sideload to install to install a system image on top of your current Android install. So yeah, that is part of it.
yeah. Real quick, Sid the Shuckle said Android desktop update. We didn't see anything. There was nothing in here, unfortunately. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't
but
use Android desktop too much. I hear it's like limited in resolution and frame rate, so it'd be kind of annoying to use on like a 4K monitor. I don't know if that's true though, because I have not used it, but that's just something I heard recently that's interesting. That would make it a little annoying to use, I think.
I have a Pixel 6a, so I don't think mine is compatible with desktop mode. Um, but
Yeah, I don't know
I'd be
when that was
interested in
added.
trying it. I want to say it was added for the 8s and higher, so I think the 6A is running out of support next year, which means we'll probably be buying new phones next year, and I'll probably tinker with it at that point. But I also, since I do a lot of video editing, it kind of has like limited use for me. I'm sure even if I bought like the Pixel Pro or whatever their highest model is, I don't know if that would be up to the task. So, um, last thing I'll say before we move on is Anonymous said cover the Shiny Hunters breach. We do put out a weekly data breach roundup. So I didn't cover all of the services, but I definitely did talk about that. I think this week and possibly last week when it first started coming out, the was it Salesforce they breached? It was something Oracle that they breached that has given them access to a whole bunch of other services. And the lovely thing about data breaches like that is they stay in the news for months because every few weeks there's another company coming forward like, yep, we got hit by that too. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe to that or check privacyguides.org/news and we'll be I'll be keeping you updated every time a new company comes along. But I think that's all we've got for this story, unless there was anything else you wanted to add.
No, I think yeah, we can move on to our next one here. This one comes from Global News in Canada. The headline is Liberals dismiss tinfoil hat privacy fears as lawful access bill passes. Liberals, the party, are dismissing the privacy concerns surrounding the government's lawful access bill as tinfoil hat and paranoid conspiracy theories, even after amending the controversial legislation to address some of those issues. The House of Commons passed Bill C-22 on Thursday before breaking for the summer, a day after approving a motion to fast-track the bill and end debate at the Public Safety Committee, which was then forced to approve it just before midnight without debating dozens of outstanding amendments. The amended bill will now head to the Senate. The legislation would give law enforcement the ability to get access to digital information more quickly and easily for investigations under a judicial warrant. Yet provisions in the bill that would allow the public safety minister to secretly order electronic service providers to retain user metadata and create access capabilities for their systems have sparked alarm from privacy advocates, academics, tech companies, and the opposition parties. So this whole story, we talked a bit about the C-22 Canada stuff last week, and I think that this is kind of a common response I think we've seen from politicians lately, where when they get a lot of backlash, they will make changes, and obviously they think that the backlash is warranted enough to make those changes to try and get this through, which is unfortunate. Hopefully, it doesn't pass at all, but it shows that they recognize there are some problems. But at the same time, they really want you, they really want to like get this impression out that the people who are asking for these changes are crazy and paranoid and really just want to create this, I don't know, public messaging out there that they are being forced to do these totally ridiculous things that they don't agree with when they're making these amendments, rather than um, being kind of they have to make these amendments because otherwise it wouldn't pass, because it's completely unacceptable, the stuff that they're trying to pass. So yeah, I don't know if I have much to add. I don't know if you saw anything further on in this article that you wanted to talk about, Nate, but I think it still remains very important, like we talked about last week, that if you're in Canada, you gotta speak out against Bill C-22, make sure it doesn't pass, because it's a very, broad, overreaching policy that is going to have really bad implications for everyone in Canada, and we're seeing, um around the world right now, especially in the UK, but also in other countries, how these anti-privacy laws, and regulations really negatively affect real people. So, yeah, hopefully it doesn't pass.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add myself. I just wanted to share that because it is really big. In the past, Signal, DuckDuckGo, and I think it said NordVPN and a whole bunch of other companies basically said they're going to stop serving the Canadian market, which is awful, right? Because you end up in a situation where either A, these people lose access to these tools, or B, they have to like jump through hoops to circumvent, or it herds people onto these weaker tools. Like, I still can't believe we were just talking about that this week. What is it, Salt Typhoon or Volt Typhoon? Like, to this day, I still can't believe that happened. Which, for anyone who doesn't know, that was an incident where we being the US, we discovered that China was in our infrastructure, like our telecom network, our phone network. They had been there for at least 2 years, I think. And we weren't even really sure when we were going to be able to get them out. We weren't even sure that we were going to be able to get them out. As far as I know, we said we've got them out, but who knows? And they got in through a law enforcement backdoor. And so, like, we always say there's no such thing as a backdoor that only the good guys can use. And we have literal proof of it. It actually happened. It's not a hypothetical. It happened. And these politicians still get up there and they're like, well, only the good guys will use this. This one will be different somehow. Step one, different backdoor. Step two, question mark. Step three, profit. So it's just, and it's so many things, right? Like, to be fair, I mean, there's definitely politicians out there who are just corrupt and dirty and they don't give a crap and they just want the power and the money. I think there's also a lot of them that are just technically inept and don't know this stuff. I mean, like, I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but I will never forget the US Congress made me feel bad for Mark Zuckerberg, which is impressive to say. Because when they grilled him after Cambridge Analytica, I remember, you can find this online, it's insane. One of the politicians was asking him, he's like, so, and he used the movie Black Panther because I think that was in theaters at the time, and he was just, it's the big thing everybody was talking about. So he's like, Mark, if I message my friends about the Black Panther movie on WhatsApp, can Facebook see that? And Zuckerberg is like, no, it's end-to-end encrypted, which means that Facebook does not have access to your messages. And to me, that's how he said it. It was very plain English. Like, yes, he said end-to-end encrypted, but he explained what that means. And then the senator goes, right, but if I message my friend, and basically asks the same question again, and you can see the look on Zuckerberg's face where he's like, is it me? Did I not explain that right? And I'm like, wow, I actually feel sorry for this guy, because they don't get it. They don't understand this technology. And it's almost like they're trying to go out of their way not to understand it sometimes. But yeah, anyways,
Yeah, that's
it's
just
so
like
like,
what Anonymous 27 just said in the chat too. The one time you want the big tech lobbyists to win. It's like, yeah, we're rooting for Zuckerberg in that case. We're rooting for the big tech lobbyists. That kind of shows how much these government legislators just do not understand any of these problems at all.
yeah, I've definitely seen a few like news articles about lawsuits or something, and it's like, like, Apple is going up against the DOJ, and I'm just like, oh, why are you making me side with Apple on this one? I hate you. So yeah, it's really bad. But I hate to sound like the tinfoil hat privacy person that they're painting us as, but you're absolutely right. It's a proven fact that when John F. Kennedy was shot, the CIA or whoever investigated it straight up said that they coined the term conspiracy theory back then. That's where the term came from. And their whole thing was they wanted to discredit anyone who questioned the findings. Like that's true. That's real. That happened. And so it's like this is the same thing all over again. It's this whole like tinfoil hat privacy fears. It's the same reason they do the whole like this is to protect the children. It's so that way they don't have to listen to you because you're automatically a monster. Like we have, and it's I'm sure like yes, there's something to be said for stopping crime. There's something to be said for catching the bad guys and protecting the children. But there are again legitimate concerns like the one I just raised about Salt Typhoon, but it's thought terminating cliche. That's what it's called. It's a thought terminating cliche. If you label somebody tinfoil hat or a conspiracy theorist, you don't have to listen to them anymore. It doesn't matter what evidence they have because they're crazy. Just ignore them. Just don't even bother. Don't even waste your time listening to them. And it's so disrespectful and insidious. And whoever called us that, please vote that guy out of office, y'all. So yeah, that's really crappy. I don't know.
And it's
Sorry.
important to remember, like the context of this is it really has widespread opposition from tech companies, especially privacy tech companies like Signal and DuckDuckGo. As Jordan just mentioned, it has opposition from uh, the the University of Toronto's Citizen Lab, which researches all of this privacy stuff. I mean, these companies are saying they'll pull out of Canada, like they've said about other countries who try to pass similar laws. Analyses by different civil liberties associations or universities, like in that case, are saying like, no, this is not a good idea. It's really like any expert who has voiced an opinion on this bill is saying like, no, this is a terrible idea. It's going to cause a lot of problems. It's just there's just is some motivation to get these bills passed anyways. Also, the other thing I wanted to add, I think for context, if you're not super familiar with Canadian politics, and I'm also not super familiar with Canadian politics, so Canadians in the chat can correct me, but I believe the Liberal Party is similar to the Democratic Party in the United States, if that gives you any context, which is just that it's kind of a big tent party with a ton of different viewpoints. Basically, they don't have, well, at least the Democrats in the US don't have a cohesive message, in my opinion, on most topics. I don't know if it's different in Canada, but similarly in the US here, I know that we've seen bipartisan support for a lot of similar policies. Like we've talked about COSA or repealing Section 230, for example, and a lot of those proposals are put forward by members of both parties we have here in the US. I just wanted to point that out because I think the Liberal Party, I believe, is the biggest party in Canada, and also I think a lot of people assume that this stuff is coming from the political party that they personally don't like, no matter what side they're on. And I think it's just important to remember that a lot of people in government are trying to do this stuff regardless of political party. It's just anti anti-citizen laws that will affect everyone on any side of the political aisle. So yeah, I just wanted to share that as well. I think that's kind of all I had to add on this.
Yeah, I think the only thing I want to add is just to really drive home the it says there the amended bill will now head to the Senate. So this hasn't fully passed yet. So for any Canadians watching this, or please pass this around. Like this is your chance to speak up and try to get this hopefully stopped or something. This is definitely your chance to contact your politicians, please. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on that note, we will move into our next story, which is this happened like the same day that the podcast went live last week. So unfortunately, a little bit too late to cover it last week, but we'll cover it now, which is that Section 702 has expired, sort of. So where to begin? So for those joining us, you've probably heard of the NSA, the National Security Agency. For some reason, my brain just said National Surveillance Agency, and that is definitely more accurate. The NSA, or the No Such Agency, as they used to call it, the NSA has, I mean, they have so many things. So specifically, there's something called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is, as the name suggests, where the NSA derives I'm going to say a significant chunk of its power. I don't really, I mean, I don't know the full scope of what the NSA's authorities and regulations and stuff are, but this is FISA, as it's known, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It specifically includes Section 702, which has been very controversial because it's old now. It's from like 2013. But John Oliver has an amazing episode where he talks all about it, and he goes and interviews Edward Snowden. Huge fan. I love showing it to people because it's so funny. But in it, he explains that Section 702 says basically that the NSA can collect, quote, any tangible thing pertaining to national security, which is basically like come on, you could, I can interpret that in a million ways. Even I could, and I'm not even a lawyer. It's just, so it's basically become this like blank check for the NSA to collect anything they want under the name of national security. Shocker. And numerous studies have found that this is wide open to abuse. There have been many unsuccessful attempts to reform this, to rein it in. A lot of them basically just say what it already says, which is that they're supposed to get approval, but the FISA system is basically a rubber stamp. So yeah, we did interview, quick shout out to, we did interview Naomi Brockwell. She worked with Lauren Boebert and Thomas Massey, who are Congress people,
Yeah.
to try and put forward a law that would close this loophole. That is still up in the air. It is an election year, so nobody's actually doing any work right now. They're all busy trying to campaign. But anyways, so long story short, this had to be extended by last Friday, I think, and the government failed to extend it. I could make political jokes there, but I'm not going to. Suffice to say, it did not go through, and as of right now, Section 702 will not be renewed. However, I want to encourage us to celebrate the wins. Again, another interview I did, Cindy Cohen, former director of the EFF, she actually just stepped down this week. She said that specifically. We have to celebrate the wins. That said, this is not a full win, sadly. And that's kind of why we're talking about it, is to kind of, because I've seen all the headlines going around about like, yay, it's repealed, it's expired, we won, blah, blah, blah. Even from the EFF, which kind of surprised me. They didn't have any of what I'm about to say in there. It was just like, yay, it went away and we won. And it's like, but wait. So the most glaring thing is that basically the way that Section 702 works is it's kind of like a rolling reauthorization, and I don't understand how this is the case, but it's basically already been reauthorized until March 2027. So at bare minimum, if this never gets renewed, if this never comes back, it will stay in place until March 2027. So it's not really dead yet. That said, again, I don't want to be a downer, but I do have to point out, I'm assuming it could come back between now and then. Like, I'm assuming that once the elections blow over, depending on who's in power, somebody could easily be like, hey, this is running out in a few months. We should really reauthorize this. And Congress will get together on both sides of the aisle and go, yeah, national security, danger, terrorism, bad things. Ooh, we need to revive this. So, again, not trying to be a downer, but that's entirely possible. And then, this author points out that FISA is only one set of authorization for the NSA to spy on us. So it's entirely possible, and I would argue very likely, that even if Section 702 definitely does not get renewed and completely dies, there's still so many other ways that the government can justify this program or similar programs or anything like that. So it's very, again, I don't want to bring the party down because we do have to celebrate the wins, and it's great that this didn't go through, and hopefully it will not go through between now and March of 2027. But I guess it's just a reminder that, the fight is not over. There's still a lot ahead of us, but yeah, I think we wanted to cover this because it is a big deal. Section 702 has been in the headlines, God, as long as I've been into privacy, and just even in mainstream headlines. Like, it's been a really, really big deal. So this is great. This is fantastic. This is a step forward. But unfortunately, it is definitely not the end of the story there. So I don't know. Did I miss anything that stuck out to you, or anything?
No, I think that's a pretty good overview. That article that we were looking at does cover a lot of stuff that I had written about when I posted some facts about this to our members chat on Signal. I think you covered it pretty well. It does extend until March 2027, like you said. That's because Section 702 doesn't really say that, the government has all these powers. It says that the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court can authorize all of these powers for a year at a time. So since it's already been authorized, you gotta wait. The other thing I wanted to say is that there are a lot of provisions of FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, because that are going to be unaffected because only Title 7 of that law expired, which contains Section 702. So there are other provisions, other titles in that, like Title 1, which uh, basically give the U.S. pretty broad spying authorities still, so all of that hasn't gone away. The one good thing about Title 1 of FISA is that it requires an individualized court process to monitor someone, which is at least aligned with the Fourth Amendment, the requirement to get a warrant, whereas Title 7 and Section 702 obviously were not at all aligned with the Fourth Amendment, and in my opinion, were totally illegal, but the government just kind of does this thing anyways. um the I saw at the end of the article they wrote about an executive order. That order has been in effect much longer than FISA has. There is precedent for the government using that to basically do the exact same things that Section 02 or Section 702 allowed. We know that the CIA was performing foreign intelligence surveillance far before FISA allowed it under this executive order. So it seems likely to me that even if Section 702 never comes back, the government is just going to continue operating the exact same way they always have been under Executive Order 12333. So I think my overall point with that is just like you said, we have to celebrate the wins, and letting these laws expire is obviously a good thing to get them off the books. But even if we let all of these surveillance laws and other illegal things that the government is doing, if we let them all expire, even that is not enough to guarantee total protection for people. We not only have to get rid of these laws, but we have to introduce new laws that explicitly protect these rights and prevent the government from infringing on them. So something like the law that Naomi Brockwell was doing or was drafting, which we've said before on the show is pretty unlikely to get passed, but at least she's calling attention to this issue with alongside Thomas Massey and Lauren Boebert. So it's a good educational piece at the very least, but laws like that do need to be passed because we need explicit protections. It's very clear that without any laws in place or with surveillance laws in place, the government is just going to do pretty much unlimited spying, which is not great at all. So yeah, that's kind of most of the Section 702 stuff that I said. When I was looking at this last week, and I think that article kind of covers the rest of it pretty well. I wasn't sure how Section 702 was going, or the expiration of it was going to affect private companies. I saw that Anonymous 27 said, "Isn't there something where the tech companies can challenge in court the searches now during this 1 year expiration?" Um, that is true. Technically, I think they always could have challenged it, but they had no real incentive to, because what Section 702 did for tech companies was basically say you have immunity if you comply with the government's requests. So, like, you can't be sued later for the breach of privacy by your users if you give us all of their data, which is good. And that actually has expired. So even though the government is authorized to take all of this information from big tech companies still, the tech companies are no longer getting protection from Section 702, which is kind of crazy. So I think that at least my hope is that some giant tech companies will fight back on this because they have less of an incentive to comply. And I think a lot of these orders are, like I said earlier, completely illegal under the Bill of Rights in the US. So it's I would hope that it wouldn't stand up to court scrutiny if it was actually ever really challenged by any of these companies, which I think the government would want to avoid. So there's two things there. I think to avoid being sued by somebody, by like a big tech company, for example, the government might, in the meantime, be a little less. I mean, they might use this power a little less against these companies because they fear it being challenged and then being taken completely off the books. I also hope that the lack of protection encourages Apple to, or not Apple specifically, but a company like Apple, for example, I think has precedent of challenging this sort of thing, like they did in 2015 with that FBI case. Apple, in that case, was really opposed to the government forcing their developers and their teams to do anything. And I think that this is a similar situation where they just don't want to be forced to do something by the government. At the same time, a challenge against the government, it's already very hard for companies. They are still allowed to be fined like $250,000 a day by the government if they don't comply with these, which is uh, obviously a very substantial sum. Maybe somebody like Apple with billions of dollars to just burn on random things could absorb that hit, but a lot of like smaller companies, for example, wouldn't be able to do that at all. So a lot of companies won't be able to challenge this, basically, is what I'm saying. So there's a couple routes that could go down. I wouldn't really rely on the expiration of this to prevent any of this spying done until March 27 in 2027 in the meantime, but it's possible that we'll see some change there.
Fair enough. We did have a couple of quick questions I wanted to address. One is from Anonymous27 here, FISA versus 702. 702 is part of FISA,
Yeah.
just to clarify that. So they're not different things. They're one is part of the other.
Yeah.
And
And
then
again, only that one part expired. So FISA is still on the books in general. It's just this one crazy warrantless part, basically.
yeah, for sure. And then Anonymous also asked to clarify, uh, did you mean that the reason this one is significant is because it allows warrantless searches of Americans? So technically, no. You are right. You said because there's no protection for foreigners, and that's how the NSA justifies surveillance on Americans is because so for example, one of our team members, Jordan, is Australian. They're very open about that. And every time we Jonah and I text Jordan, that signal crosses international borders, and therefore the NSA is allowed to intercept that signal. They're supposed to discard the American side of the conversation, quote unquote, but generally, I think we can all agree that they probably do not, or definitely do not. So, yeah, that's kind of their loophole. Or Snowden pointed out in that John Oliver episode I mentioned that sometimes he used like Google as an example. Google, entirely invisibly to you, will take all your emails and move them to another physical server. Like, let's say they need to do maintenance on that particular server where your emails are. So they'll move your emails to another server while they do maintenance. And you never see this. You never know this is happening. But maybe that server is in Mexico or Canada or something. And again, once it crosses those borders, the NSA has permission to do that. I don't know if they're still allowed to do, or I don't know if it still works that way. Because to be fair, that interview was like 13 years ago at this point. So that may no longer be the case, but that was how he explained it at the time. So we got a couple of quick questions I wanted to note here. I'm having a hard time finding our page on Android because some people asked about GrapheneOS and how graphene's coming to Motorola's now. So would we argue that Pixels or Motorola's are safer? And I'm trying to find the page where we recommend Pixels, but I know it's there, but basically, yeah. At this time, as far as I know, Pixels are, from a hardware perspective, much safer than, or much more secure than Motorola's. So it's not even like U.S. versus China thing. It's just that at this time, Pixel hardware is much more secure.
Well, I mean, and that's important. You say at this time. I don't know what just happened to my cameras. Let me figure this out. But I'll just explain quick. I think we have no way of knowing for sure what the Motorola thing is going to end up looking like, because I guess GrapheneOS is involved in the design of this somehow. So hopefully they can bring Motorola's hardware security up to speed. But we will have no idea until that phone actually comes out.
Yeah, which is what I was going to say is at this time it's yeah, that's where I was going is once graphene gets involved, this new Motorola might be more secure, and at that point we'll have to sit back and like reevaluate. I still can't find it. I know there's a page where we explicitly say that at this time pixels are the only Androids we recommend, but I can't find it right now. But I know it's on there. It's on the website somewhere. So yeah, that advice may change in the future, may not. We don't really know at this time. Um, and yeah, I mean, somebody asked about firmware backdoors. I mean, look, personal opinion, that's speculation. We can't prove it. We can't disprove it. If we can prove there's a backdoor, then yes, obviously that would change the math. But I mean, this whole like, I my threat model is not high enough. If I have that kind of threat model where I can't trust the hardware, then I'm just not going to use it. Like for day to day stuff, like texting my wife to remind me to get eggs or whatever, like I don't know. It's just I can only care about so many things, and I can't spend my time on speculation personally. So I know some people have that threat model, but I don't. Um, while Jonah's figuring out his camera, no, we generally use Signal back here. Anonymous27 is asking if I text Jordan with SimpleX. We typically use Signal because it's very feature rich. We're all already on it. I do have SimpleX, but yeah, I definitely don't get a lot of messages there. Somebody asked about Zen browser. I know Jonah has used that in the past. He's a big fan. I think he still uses it. I haven't really used it. I'm a bit of a Brave person, to be honest, but I don't know. I kind of bounce around between browsers, but I primarily use Brave because I like that it just has a lot of built-in privacy stuff that I just don't have to think about. So, and
Yeah,
Jonah's
as
back, I
far
think.
as yeah, I'm back. We'll see if it happens again. I don't know what's going on with my camera where it just stops and goes to showing pictures I've taken instead, but whatever. Um, Zen browser, I've talked about that in a few episodes now. So I would encourage going back if you want to hear full thoughts. But the main thing is, it seems to be a good browser. It seems like they're removing things that Mozilla is doing that I don't agree with, which is good, and they're not being privacy invasive by default, which you can't say about um, big alternatives to Zen browser like Arc browser, for example. So from that perspective, it seems pretty good. It's still a Firefox fork, and there's problems with Firefox in general compared to Chromium. It doesn't do a lot of like super active protections to improve your privacy. So something like Brave is going to be better than that for sure. But there are some features. I think it was the last episode where I mentioned I do know Brave is working to implement some of the features that I use in Zen browser the most. So maybe they will convince me to switch over. But I think I use both Brave Origin and Zen browser like 50-50 at the moment. And I like both of them. So, but there's a Zen browser, thread on the forum that I would check out for more information, as always, because it's gotten mixed reviews from some people, and I would not just take my word for it, I would look into it further before you decide to use it for sure.
We had another quick before we move on. Somebody said, "Do we have any case or how we guys did the change to Signal?" Um, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I think you're talking about how to get other people using Signal. I know we've said this a lot in the past, but my wife is the expert on getting people onto Signal, and usually her thing is that she focuses on features. Like if you're talking about quote unquote normies, like normal people who don't really prioritize privacy and security, they're not going to care if you talk about all the privacy and security features. But if you talk about how it's got like these larger attachment sizes, it's cross platform, you can do message reactions, you can do GIFs, you can do stickers. Like I know when Signal rolled out Giphy support, a lot of people were pissed about it. And in stories too, same thing. Like a lot of people were like, this is dumb. I don't want this. I don't care. You don't care. But a lot of people do. A lot of people use them, especially around the world. So I don't know. I would try to focus on what everything is about solving a problem, right? Like you I almost hate to say this because it feels sleazy, but like you almost have to approach it from a sales perspective. And the whole point of sales is that you're trying to solve someone's problem. Somebody has a pain point and you're promising to relieve that pain. So like that's how I've had good results getting people on password managers, because I'm there when they're like logging into something and they're like, oh my God, what was my stupid password for this website again? And I'm like, hey, you want to know a program that'll help you like never forget your password again? And I get them to use like Bitwarden or something like that. So it's trying to find out what is that pain point that you're trying to solve for someone. Because again, most people don't care about privacy and security. But if you can tell them like, oh, you can send bigger attachment sizes, or again, like it's cross-platform. I know RCS is becoming interoperable now, so that's probably not as good of an argument as it used to be. But yeah, just kind of figure out what is important to them and how does Signal meet that need is what I would recommend. So um, I'm gonna let Jonah continue try to figure that out with the camera. But I think we're at the point where we're going to move on to site updates. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about some stuff going on in the UK real quick. But first, here's what's been going on. It's, again, as usual, it's been a very busy week at Privacy Guides. We have a new video, if you guys did not know. Let me pull that up real quick. We have a video about passwords. So this video is aimed more at the average user that we were just talking about a minute ago, who's maybe not necessarily super concerned with privacy and security, but it also kind of addresses, there's been, in the past few years, I've seen a lot of people, when you talk about passwords and password security, a lot of people focus on the idea that, that like complexity doesn't matter at all anymore and it's all about length. And so we kind of dive into that. We kind of made this, again, we did make this video for everybody, so this might be a good video to share with like friends and family, but it also focuses on the whole like, well, why do people say that length matters more, and where did that advice come from, and how true is it? And so we talk about like entropy and how to calculate that. I mean, roughly, it's really complicated stuff, and we try to keep it simple, but we try to break it all down. And of course, we talk about passkeys because those are coming out now, and are those better than passwords per se? So yeah, I'm really proud of that video. I think it's got about almost 3,000 views already. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet, and share that with your friends and family to maybe help them understand passwords a little better. I tried not to get too technical with it, but it kind of explained like why passwords suck and why we need better solutions. And I hope we did that. And then just to let you all know, we have a new video in the works that is a response to the Plex price hike. So probably in what is it? What time is it? It's the 19th. So probably in about 10 days here, that's going to be a very popular topic. And we offer some people it's really not hard to guess, but I'm not going to say what our advice was, but there is some information there about how to respond to that. So there's that. I don't know if Jonah's got his camera working now. Here we go. We cannot hear you, sir. You're muted.
I might be back. Well, I'm trying a different
Okay.
camera, so I don't know if it's gonna be. I don't know if it's
Okay.
gonna work any better, but we'll see.
Well, so far you're back. So do you want to take over the next portion of the site updates?
Yes, where are we? Let's see. Site updates. I've been working mostly on the verified apps data set. We've been getting a lot of submissions. I had to solve some issues with getting them all working, but I think those are all solved, so we can add more apps again and push more updates to that. Other site updates have been continuing. In general, Free has been posting a lot of news articles as usual that you can see at privacyguides.org/news. So that's a great place to check out any privacy, security, whatever related news stories that you might not have seen, that we don't cover on the show because we only have a limited amount of time, can't talk today, to cover all of these stories. So that's a great place to stay up to date on all of this stuff as well, in addition to our form. Other than those articles, though, and the stuff that I've kind of been working on this week, I don't know of any other major site updates that we have done so far. But things are always happening. I'm excited about all the video stuff that you're doing. All of the stuff that we do at Privacy Guides, that's made possible by Our supporters are members and one-time donors. You can sign up for a membership or donate at privacyguides.org/donate. If you do, it would really help us out. You can also pick up some swag at shop.privacyguides.org, like what Nate was just showing off. Privacy Guides is a nonprofit that researches and shares privacy-related information. We facilitate a community on our forum and matrix where people can ask questions and get advice about staying private online and preserving their digital rights. So yeah, please support us if you are able to. It does really help. I think now we can move on to how burner phones are at risk in the US.
Yeah. Do you want to take
And
that
if I
one, or you
could
want
pull
me
it up.
to?
Yeah,
Oh, I
just had to pull
I
it up
got you
again
right here.
here.
I got you.
Perfect. This is from CNET. If the FCC bans burner phones, it could be a privacy nightmare. Proposed rules would require every mobile customer to provide a government ID. Experts warn that the move could effectively end anonymous phone service in the US. The article goes, the Federal Communications Commission is poised to begin forcing the country's telecom companies to collect names, addresses, and government identification numbers for every cell phone customer. If adopted, a likely outcome given the FCC's current Republican majority who support it, the rules would effectively outlaw burner phones, devices that aren't specifically tied to identifying data, allowing the privacy-minded to maintain their anonymity. The proposal is called Know Your Customer Requirements, as a lot of people in the financial and cryptocurrency space are likely already very familiar with. And the FCC is framing it as a way to stop robocalls and scammers. Anyone with a phone can tell you the problem is very real. US consumers receive an average of 10 unwanted calls every week, a number that's grown at a compounded 16% rate every year since 2023. I personally can tell you that is definitely true. I wish I only received 10 a week. So, that is a problem, but this certainly is not going to solve it. It doesn't address the core problems with the telecom system in general. But as the article rightfully notes, it punishes those who use burner phones, including journalists, travelers, whistleblowers, and domestic abuse survivors. The senior legislative associate at the Electronic Frontier Foundation said that collecting all of this data is horrible for everyone's privacy. You have to ask, do you trust the government to have that information at this current moment in time? A government that has proven that they are trying to centralize and weaponize your information. So yeah, this is a big problem. We've been talking a bit more about cell towers and privacy and cell companies and privacy and all of that stuff. I think at least in the United States recently, we talked about Cape a few weeks ago, and they have been very opposed to this bill, and they've been talking, trying to lobby against this a bit because they don't collect any of this information at sign up. I think this is going to be a big problem for other companies who have a similar model. Like Nate, I know, has talked about Mint Mobile and how you can just pick up those SIM cards in cash. Now they're going to have to collect a lot more information. Generally, with this data collection stuff, companies don't want to do it, at least some of them, especially if they can't monetize that data in the same way that like big tech companies with advertising programs can monetize it, because they it's a risk, it's a business liability for them to have all of this data, especially as data breaches become more common. And now the government is basically mandating every single company involved in your telecommunications to collect all of this sensitive information about you. So it's problematic for sure. Um, it's a similar problem to, we've talked about like voter ID laws in the US, and that is also the sort of thing where this mandatory ID system doesn't make a lot of sense, but it will harm a ton of people. A lot of people in the US do not have like a driver's license or a government issued ID in general because it's not required, which, if these laws pass, could mean that a lot of people, millions of people in the US, would not be able to access phone service at all. I think this is mentioned in the article. Let me scroll out and find it. Yeah, it says as of 2024, nearly 21 million voting age US citizens don't have a current driver's license, with Black and Hispanic Americans disproportionately less likely to have one. So I think that's a very problematic thing. It goes against, there's been a long-standing thing. Historically, the Republican Party would always kind of fight for or fight against government IDs and government mandated IDs. They fought against like the real ID mandate that required these stronger IDs and government issued IDs for travel. Now, of course, they seem to be going completely in the other direction. It seems like everyone in the government at the moment is going in the other direction, but this sort of thing is not a popular change by any means, and it is going to affect a lot of people. So, yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, there are a lot of technical solutions to this that cell companies should be implementing that can stop the spam problem. This is pretty unlikely to stop any of the spam issues, in my opinion. It's kind of as simple as that. So, yeah, Nate, anything else you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I just want to drive home that point. I mean, Jordan said it hasn't cut down on spams and scams in countries that have implemented it, so we have evidence it doesn't work. Not like the government ever cares about evidence, any government for the record. But yeah, that's kind of my thought too, because aren't most of these scams, like most of these scams, okay, first of all, I'm gonna go ahead and get on my little soapbox here for a minute and be like a what's the joke? Like a bleeding heart liberal or whatever. Um, a lot of these scammers and spammers, not all, obviously, but a significant number are actually human trafficking victims in places like Southeast Asia. So, personal opinion, I'm not really a fan of like messing with these people, because like it's just like I hear the argument that the more time you spend trolling them, the less time they're actually scamming somebody who's going to fall for it. And I'm not necessarily giving them a free pass, but like these people are going to be taken back to their rooms and beaten if they don't meet their quotas. Which again, I'm not saying like you should help them meet their quotas, but my point is like, why make a terrible situation worse? I used to have a coworker at my last job that would like yell at spam callers, and it's like, please don't do that around me. But anyways, so like point being where I'm going with that and what inspired this thought originally is a lot of them aren't even located in the US. So like, how is this going to stop them? Like they don't need to get an ID. They're a lot of them are spoofing phone calls, and I know that because it comes and goes in popularity. But I have in the past gotten a lot of phone calls at various my pseudo numbers, and when I pick it up, and especially like I had a phone number specifically for work, so I had to pick it up because there were always people that I didn't have saved in my phone calling me. A lot of the time they would call, and like I'd pick it up and they'd be like, "Yeah, I got a call from this number," and I'm like, it wasn't me because I haven't called anyone all day, or even some of my lesser used numbers that I stopped answering after a while. They'd like, I got a call from this number. I'm like, I haven't called anybody in like 3 months, dude. I don't know. Like, it's somebody spoofing my phone number. So like, how is this going to fix that? How is this going to solve that? Like, it's so dumb. It's like, and yes, it's annoying. I get that, but like this isn't going to solve anything. This is just the classic like politicians trying to look like they're doing something, and it doesn't matter if it actually works. It's just the illusion of motion. So yeah, it's really frustrating. I actually hardly get any spam calls, and I'm really starting to wonder why that is. I don't know if that's because I pay for I don't know if that's because I pay for like a data removal service like Easy Opt Outs, or I don't know if that's because I use a lot of fake phone numbers. I don't remember it off the top of my head. Is my password manager open? It might be. Oh, it is. Oh God, what is it? There is, and I'm sharing this one with you guys because it's hilarious. 248-434-5508. That phone number plays Never Gonna Give You Up on an Infinite Loop. So if I ever have to provide a phone number and I know for certain they are never ever gonna have to call me, I like using that one personally. But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I like hardly get anything. But I had family visiting last week, and one of them, like 2 or 3 times, they were only here for like 5 days, and 2 or 3 times, one of them kept picking up their phone and then immediately hanging up, and they're like, scam call. And it's like, I get a few around election time, but that's about it. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know. There is a solution, clearly. I don't know what it is, but I found it, and it wasn't requiring everybody to get an ID. So yeah, this is terribly flawed. The last thing I want to say is I'm going to put it back up on screen here for a second. Please check out this article because it does say that rules are open for public comment until June 15th, which is 6 days away as we're streaming this. And there is a link on where to go. There is all the information you will need to leave a comment. They even have examples of comments that they recommend that you emulate. So, yeah. Will the FCC just totally ignore us? Probably. They've done it in the past, but I mean, it's better than just doing nothing, right? So, yeah. I think you're muted again, Jonah.
Sorry about that. That section about leaving a comment to the FCC was exactly the last thing I wanted to point out. So I'm glad you mentioned that. If you're in the US, definitely check out this article because they have like a link and everything to do that. Yeah.
Chicken Little says you have to give a name and address. I mean, devil's advocate here. Do they verify it? Maybe you could just leave a zip code or leave like a PO box, maybe. So, I mean, as long as you're not threatening anybody, I don't think they're gonna. And that's that's something I always have to remind people here is like, please don't be a jerk. Don't threaten people because if your comment is just like, like you guys suck, you're all pedophiles, this is evil, blah blah blah. Like they're not going to listen to your comment. But if you like the one they said here is like a scammer might try to steal my information, but that does not justify a process through which the federal government would definitely steal it. Even that one, in my opinion, is a little bit harsh. Just something like what I said. Like many of these spam calls are coming from overseas, so I fail to see how this would actually do anything. Like just something that's actually thought out and logical. Like you're not, like you've seen sunlight in the last 6 days or something. So I don't know. Just try not to be mean to people. That's what I'm getting at. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So
something I haven't seen for sure mentioned yet, but I believe is true is I think this only applies to getting a phone number. I'm curious about two things. I'm curious whether or how this is going to impact VoIP providers like MySudo, for example. I'm also curious whether cell companies who do want to have like a privacy first service would be able to maybe sell like data only lines, for example, and then you could get a VoIP number or something else to handle the phone stuff if that ends up being an easier solution to get a phone number anonymously. I don't know if that's true or if that would work or not. Personally, like I wouldn't mind a data only SIM myself. They're just harder to come by, but I don't really need a lot of the functions that a full phone line provides. But of course, that's just me. Obviously, a lot of people really need a phone number to call and text, so that's not going to work for everyone at all. I think this is a big problem, but I am interested in seeing whether or not any of that stuff happens.
yeah, that is another thing towards the bottom they pointed out is like, if you switch to something like Signal, they say Telegram, which is not encrypted. Screw Telegram. They say turn off location tracking. They say use 2 separate phones, but I don't know what's that supposed to solve. But I will say that that is something that we recommend on privacy guides is like on the website is whenever you're not using your phone, like if you're at home and you're on Wi-Fi, put your phone in airplane mode because at least that like kills the connection to the towers. And like there's definitely ways to eliminate the amount of data that is tied to your name. Even if something like this were to go through and be required, like you could still and like again, I understand there are very high threat model people here. Like the article even points that out. There's whistleblowers, there's journalists, there's people trying to escape abuse situations. Like I'm not trying to downplay that, but for the average person, even in a situation like this, there are still ways to reduce the amount of data going back to these companies for sure. So, but yeah, it's good to hear Cape is fighting back against this. I hope other companies will too. And that was my thought too, because I know MySudo had to. They did start verifying ID for UK phone numbers. A long while back when that became a thing. So yeah, that is a good question for sure. And unfortunately I don't have any answers.
Shoot.
But
that is crazy. Just that thing that you pointed out at the end about Telegram. It's crazy that they say it offers end-to-end encryption
Telegram
on all
has
messages.
the best marketing ever,
I
man,
know.
because they have totally
from.
convinced people that they're a good app.
That is crazy.
I need to write another blog post about why Telegram sucks. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because we had a few questions since we left the The site updates. So Limitless asked if we had any videos or topics about hardware keys. We haven't made any videos yet. I don't even know if we have that written down as an idea, but I'd totally be down to at some point. We do have a page on the website though that kind of talks about them a little bit and which ones we recommend. So definitely check that out for now. Um, uh, let's see. Chicken Little said to check the comments on the passwords video because there's some critiques. We'll check those out. We don't. I try not to check the comments too often because I mean, look, people read the comments. I'm not going to lie to you guys. And like when some people get really worked up about small details, I don't mind being corrected. Again, it's what I said a minute ago. It's one thing to leave a comment and be like, "Hey, you were wrong about this thing." It's okay. Actually, I'm going to mention this. So over on the New Oil, I just put out a video about Tutor Drive. And in the video, I mistakenly said that quantum computers are replacing classical computers. And one person left a comment and they were still kind of like a little bit obnoxious about it. But they left a comment and they were like, that's not true. Quantum computers have very specific use cases, but they're not going to replace classical computers. And as much as it did make me a little defensive, I replied and I was like, all right, thank you for the correction. I apologize. Somebody else made the same correction, but they literally said, like, you've lost all credibility and have no idea what you're talking about. And it's just like, cool, screw you too. Like, it can be difficult to take criticism when it's so harshly presented. So like I definitely do appreciate criticism and suggestions to do better. It's just it gets a little bit exhausting when it's so just thrown out there so dramatically and so like I'm a terrible person because I misspoke. It's so but yeah, we'll check those because I mean again, I do want to get better at videos. So
Yeah, the tricky thing about comments on that video specifically, I haven't read all of them, so like I don't know if there's some good critiques. Like you said, we'll have to check it out. But I did when that video came out, I looked at a lot of the comments, and a lot of them were also like things that were addressed in the video. So which happens a lot in the comments. It's like, okay, if you watch the whole thing, that is answered, but that's a commonly that's not very common for a lot of YouTube viewers to do, unfortunately. So we get a lot of comments like that.
a lot of comprehension issues. Yeah, I see that too. It's like, what about this thing? And it's like, well, we kind of addressed that in this part. But
Yeah. And of course, that's always something we can improve as well. But sometimes it's like, obviously, there's not much you can do to help some people.
Another good question here from Chicken Little though. On GrapheneOS, would you recommend the Aurora Store or the Play Store? I mean, I don't know about it in terms of privacy. I'm going to say Aurora is probably better, but we've seen in the past that the Play Store is usually more reliable because I remember there was Google did something or other that like basically broke the Aurora Store for a lot of users for I think a good couple of weeks, and people weren't able to log in and weren't able to get updates. And I've noticed because I've tested Graphene a couple times, I've noticed it's definitely a lot more seamless in the Play Store because like I've been in situations where like I'll open an app and it's like, hey, we're offering 50% off a premium or whatever. And I'm like, oh, cool. And if I click the button in Graphene, it takes you right to the Play Store and you can pay for a subscription. And on Aurora Store, it's like an error. It doesn't work. And that's fine if it's one of those privacy respecting apps where it's like, oh, okay, I'll just log into the website and pay there. But some of them, it's like, no, this offer is only on the Play Store, which again, at that point, there's like privacy concerns. But I guess I'm just saying it's definitely a much smoother experience, I think, to use the Play Store. But Aurora would probably be more private in my guess.
Yeah,
So
sure. I mean, yeah, it depends on what you really want. Personally, I have like a work profile for all the Google related stuff, like stuff that needs Google for reliable push notifications or relies on Google Play services for some other reason. I installed Google Play services from the GrapheneOS app store in there because all of those functions work without a Google account except for the Play Store, which requires one. So I use Aurora Store in that case to obtain the apps because you can do it without a Google account, which personally I think is very important. But if you're going to use a Google account anyways for all the stuff on your device, the Play Store is probably better. But if you don't want to, if like some people don't have Google accounts, obviously, and you probably don't want to make one. So then if you need Google Play services and you don't want to make an account, you can do exactly like that. Just install Google Play services and Aurora Store. It's a good solution.
Yeah, on that note, continuing this, Chicken Little says, does Aurora actually improve privacy? So it improves privacy from what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. It improves privacy in the Play Store. So, like, the Play Store is not recording every app that I search or even the apps that I download because there's no Google account associated with it. But yeah, the app itself, I mean, it'll still be tracking the same stuff that it would as if it came from the Play Store. So, um,
Yeah.
it's
I
more
mean,
like
it's
protecting yourself
always
directly from Google than, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we have a whole section on our site about, like, reducing the number of accounts you have and stuff like that, and it's always going to be yeah, like you said in your next comment here, you can make a Google account with a VPN or whatever, but it's always the more privacy-minded solution to just not have an account at all, and then you don't have to worry about that sort of thing or potentially leaking it in the future. As Jordan just said, it's very challenging to make a burner Google account. The other thing you have to keep in mind is, like, if you make a Google account with a VPN, you then have to use that VPN all the time and not slip up with it. So it's a lot more work compared to just not having an account at all, obviously. And I think that Aurora Store is very helpful in that regard.
Yeah, Jordan said what I was thinking. It's Google's getting real stuff, real strict about especially requiring a real phone number, like a SIM phone number. So it's tricky. This one I don't know. Is there a security difference between the two? Or they're like equally secure, right?
There's some risk. Aurora could just give you any APK that they want for you to download and install. So they could send you an impersonation app. If you install the legitimate app first, then Android is going to prevent you from installing like an impersonator update because it checks like the signature and stuff. So once you have that baseline, you're perfectly good with using Aurora. Um, I believe I don't know if this is true enough, but I'm pretty sure I've seen this on the Google Play Store. I think you can get updates for your apps on Google Play without signing in. I think on the sign-in page, there's a way to see updates, but, uh, I could be wrong about that, so correct me if I'm wrong. But that could be a good method to, like, if you install an app from Aurora, for example, you could try and get updates from Google Play, and then if those updates don't install, then you might have to be worried. On the other hand, like, Aurora is a pretty trusted app at this point. It has a long track record. There's been no notable issues. So, yeah, Jordan says, yeah, there is a way to get updates from Google Play without signing in. So, like, that's a good setup to have, I think, if you use Aurora for initial installs too, and then you have Google Play to get more reliable updates, that could be a good thing because as you mentioned, Nate, like, there have been reliability issues with Aurora sometimes, so having another source for those updates is good. Um, the other issue that I've heard about Aurora is that, like, some settings on the Google accounts that they use can impact what gets served. So, like, if that Google account is opted into, like, a beta program, for example, of an app, then you might automatically get that version in Aurora. Um, I don't know widespread how widespread of an issue that is. I don't know what things could be changed in the Play Store on a per account basis. So there is that risk with using anonymous accounts, but there shouldn't be too many settings that would cause a real big impact in that regard. So overall, I'm personally not too worried about Aurora, but there is certainly a lot of stuff to keep in mind because you are trusting another party in addition to Google at the end of the day. I think that using alternative app stores entirely whenever possible is the safest solution for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's related to the accounts in Aurora or maybe like my device and my VPN and stuff, but I know sometimes in the past when I'm using Aurora, I have difficulty getting apps like MySudo because they're only available in certain countries. So like sometimes I have to kind of close it out and research like several times before it shows up. So yeah, that's a thing. Chicken Little said it seems like it still does send stuff to Google, so sends a list of your apps, IP address, all apps you download and search. So yeah, one thing that might be better is Google Play might have more fingerprinting. So yeah, again, it's not a huge deal. I guess it's
Well,
really personal preference.
they're not
So
gonna have, like, a list of apps on your device, though, because 'cause you're using a shared Google account, so that all gets merged together with other people who share it. They might have a list of apps per, like, IP address that downloads them, if Google is tracking that, but you can always it's very easy to use a VPN and just split up your downloads. It's also very easy to I mean, people switch IPs all the time, whether that's, like, their cell provider switching towers or for some other reason, so, yeah, I think all of these things, Google has visibility, obviously, because you're downloading it from the Google Play Store, but I think it's pretty obvious that there's a significantly different type and amount of data that could be collected by Google from Aurora Store versus like signing in with a Google account and installing everything from Google Play directly. This is a risk maybe of like all of the apps on your specific device if you do that thing I just said where you get things from Aurora Store, but then you get updates from Google Play because then you're using the Google Play app and they could get all of that information based on like your device ID that the Google Play app can read, which is, I mean, versus the Aurora Store, which sends like a spoofed device to Google Play basically. So that could be a reason to disable Google Play if you install it and only use Aurora, but at the same time, like, if you're using Google Play services in general, Google probably can collect all that information via other means, so, yeah, there's all sorts of privacy problems, obviously, with using any Google stuff, which is why, I just wouldn't use any of these solutions if you're super concerned about Google fingerprinting you, get your apps via other means.
yeah, Jordan had a comment about a private space. We're actually going to talk about that in a little bit, so I'm going to save that one for now. Um, one more question we got before we move on to the next story. Limitless said having a private DNS inside your home network or on a VPS is a start for more privacy, right? I saw a lot of recommendations on starting with this step. So I mean, in my personal opinion, I think self-hosting your own DNS is not what I would call a starting point. I think that's a little bit advanced, but I think yeah, I would definitely say Privacy Guides does have a list of recommended DNS providers that you could just start using right away and just like plug it into your router or whatever. I would definitely say that's a good place to start. And especially, a lot of them do come with like ad blockers built in. So that's a really good way to help cut down it. In my experience, it doesn't completely reduce them, but it'll cut down on like the number of ads in like a smart TV, for example. So yeah, that's definitely something I recommend. I really want to find the time to start digging into the pie hole. I think I'm finally ready to pull the trigger on that. That would probably be the easiest DNS to self-host, I would imagine, or maybe something like NextDNS. But yeah, I mean, again, I think self-hosting it is a little bit more advanced. Would not recommend that as a first step, but if you're comfortable doing that, I think that's a great thing to do. But changing your DNS for sure is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And then you said, do you guys plan on adding an education tab for apps and educations? I don't know if we could do that because there's so many and there's so many different needs. And you say like tools that students could use when they first look on privacy guides. A lot of the time, students don't have a choice. Like you have to sign into your school portal and use a certain app. So
Yeah, I mean, or also, I don't know if there are a lot of, like, student-specific recommendations to think about either, like, a lot of the a lot of the apps that we recommend on privacy guides, we list them specifically because they're kind of widely applicable to most people, so, I wouldn't be super opposed to doing something like that. I'm not super familiar with, like, a ton of privacy, related, like, tools specifically for students. I saw you just mentioned, like, Zotero, which I believe, like, manages citations if you're writing a paper, if I remember correctly. Um,
yeah, I'm looking at the
that
website right now. Collect, organize, annotate, cite, and share research.
so I guess there is some, like, research-related academic sort of software that we could recommend. Personally, I'm not super familiar with all of them, especially, I've heard of some of these, like, I've seen Zotero, for example, but I don't know off the top of my head, like, super privacy-focused alternatives besides, like, maybe using a standard bookmark manager for something, but that's not going to help with like formatting resources. If anyone does have like suggestions for academic tools that we could look into, definitely leave suggestions on the forum because obviously we look at all of those and it allows more people to get eyes on them and discuss them. So we're not relying on people on the team trying to know everything about everything, right? We gotta we gotta get all of our recommendations from the community. So definitely, definitely mention that. But yeah, otherwise, like we have recommendations for notebook software, for example. We have recommendations for stuff like RSS readers for keeping up with news and all sorts of stuff that students can use. So
Yeah, I was
yeah.
gonna say I haven't been a student in over 10 years, and I was a liberal arts major, so I didn't really do a lot of citations. I just had to. I was actually a music major, so I had to know how to play piano, and that was it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it looks like interesting. But yeah, that's what I was gonna say is like definitely. I would say open a thing on the forum, and if this turns out to be like a huge area of concern, then it's something we could definitely look into. But I
Yeah,
certainly wouldn't even know where to start. You said someone mentioned Obsidian. I've used Obsidian. I like Obsidian. I keep hearing conflicting reports on whether or not it's open source. Some people don't like it.
it's
I don't
not
know,
open
but
source. I can tell you that for sure.
gotcha. Okay. But I mean, yeah, there's so many. That's actually something I've been meaning to do. I started doing and then I got super distracted is for my last job, I started building a personal knowledge base because we had so many like where's this manual, where's this support number, who's the contact for this, like we had so much of that going on. I started building a and I used Notion for it because this was for work, so it was not super sensitive, but I started building like a personal database of like my own personal wiki. um so like the reason I bring that up is at one point I wanted to do like a review of all these different like Notion type. Like there's one called AnyType, I think, and then there's Obsidian, and there's like NotesNook, and yeah, I
Mhm.
really wanted to do that, but I just it fell by the wayside. And there's so many videos to do in so little time.
I think the tricky thing with Obsidian is like I don't really know. I guess I just don't use notebook stuff enough, and I haven't really seen on the forum like a great explanation for why it would be much better than NotesNook. I think NotesNook is a pretty widely liked note-taking application as well. Um, so I mean, if people like Obsidian a lot more, definitely just share that on the forum thread for it, and we'd have to consider it. AnyType is another one where that's been talked about for a while. I'm not exactly sure why we don't have it on the site. It's maybe just because not a lot of people are super interested in getting it listed. That's how it works a lot of the times. If it's sorry, if there's something that's not listed on the site, it's usually just because not enough people are really pushing for it to happen. So you gotta let us know what to look into or where these discussions are going. Because the entire site is obviously it's more of a community collaborative effort than, like, one person's opinion, right? So I can't really just put whatever we want on the site.
Does NotesNook not have a free tier?
That I don't know.
Because I'm looking at the website right now and I'm trying to remember. I'm like, why didn't I use NotesNook? Because I remember looking at it. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
believe they
Maybe
do
maybe
have
I'll.
I think they have a free tier. I don't know what the limitations are. I haven't used it in a while because I just don't use a lot of notes apps in general, but they have some sort of free tier. You'd have to look at their pricing site to see how it compares. I don't know.
I want something that integrates with Nextcloud. I want Nextcloud's Notes app to be just a little bit better. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not on par with something like Obsidian. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I might drop that idea in our little database of video ideas. Circle back to that. I can't remember why I didn't go with NotesNook. Anyways, let me see here. I think that was yeah. Obsidian is not transparent, and they don't have modes on iOS. Or you might be talking about NotesNook. Anyways, um, yeah. Okay. So with that, we're gonna move on to our next story. And this one's actually just going to be really, really quick because we have talked to death about age verification and social media bans and all this crap, and we're so tired of talking about it. But unfortunately, this is happening, and it's moving forward. So that's really why we're bringing this up. Again, this is going to be real quick, but the UK has now, from what I understand, officially decided they're going to ban social media for children under 16, and also may impose overnight curfews, which is interesting. So this will take effect in spring of 2027 and will apply to platforms such as Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, aka X. And Keir Starmer is so proud of this. We're going further than any country in the world by banning social media for under 16s, and I'm pretty sure other countries have done that too. But yeah, this is man. I don't. I mean, again, we've talked about this to death, so I'm really not going to say that much other than just like this is not going to work. It has not worked in other countries. I don't know what makes the UK think they're special that it's going to work for them. I believe this article pointed out that this is just going to. Oh yeah. It's probably where was it? Yeah, right here, the subheader. Critics say bans push kids to riskier alternatives and can be beaten with VPNs, which we've already seen. We've already seen kids using VPNs to get around this stuff in the social media or in the United Kingdom. We've already seen them, you know, what is it like using their parents' IDs or using screenshots from video games? I mean, this is I don't know. I don't understand what is with governments this week deciding that like, oh, we know this thing doesn't work. There's evidence this thing doesn't work. There's real world examples that this thing doesn't work. Hey, let's do that thing. So whatever. But we're mostly sharing to alert the UK people in the audience, and maybe you can contact your MPs and hopefully get them to reverse course. I don't know what's going on over there. Y'all scare me, and that's coming from an American. Y'all scare me. So yeah, I don't. Like I said, I'd keep that one quick because I don't really have much to add. Do you have anything to say on that one, Jonah?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we've been talking about all this stuff in the UK for quite a while, and it just keeps coming. I don't really understand. Jordan has a good point about like China's doing stuff like that or did stuff like this in the past, and everyone in other countries kind of lost their minds about it, and they're like, "Oh, China's so terrible," and then all of this stuff is just gonna happen everywhere else. Uh, they just kind of yeah, it's and all governments seem to have this same motivation for some reason. I don't really understand what it is about, like and I don't know what triggered this, whether it's, like, terrorist attacks in the '90s or early 2000s or whether it's, like, the rise of technology, but I feel like people just don't really want to stand up for any of these things or stand against the government anymore. I feel like there used to be at least some more of a movement in, like, society and modern culture where, like, people distrusted the government more, and now it seems like the government just kinda does whatever they want, and there's not a lot of pushback from people whatsoever, and I don't know what has really driven that change or why it's happening, but it seems like a problem to me.
Well,
Yeah.
I think with these tech laws specifically, it's like people. I mean, we see it in our own comments. People will come into the comments and they'll just be like, "No, this is a good thing. Like, kids don't belong on the internet. Like, Facebook is so bad for kids." And it's like, I think it was you pointed out. It's like, yeah, but Facebook's like bad for everyone. It's hurting everyone. And like, I don't understand. I do understand. It's the internet is where nuance goes to die. But like, for some reason, people they seem to think this is a good thing, and they're ignoring all the like the ways that this can go wrong and all the knock on effects that this is going to have. And that's the part that baffles me is like, how does nobody see where this is inevitably going to lead?
Yeah,
So,
and I feel like people used to be able to see this. I don't know how true that is, but, like, yeah, as you like, there's the Boston yeah, the Boston Tea Party, would fight back against the government,
well, we did that
wars
just because tea sucks.
oh, yeah, obviously.
Hot take. That's what we're gonna get a million comments on right there.
But, like, other things that the government just tries to do for no reason, there's more pushback against it, like, during the Vietnam War, for example, obviously, there were whole movements against this sort of thing, protests. Um, there were protests in the streets lately about, like, immigration stuff, earlier in the year, but yeah, not a lot of, like, the ways that the government just overreaches in every other aspect of our lives. Um I don't
Well, I
know.
feel like the UK in particular, and like someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not being facetious here. Um, maybe I've gotten the wrong impression from headlines, but I feel like the UK has made it a lot harder to protest over there. So
Yeah, the
that could
UK
be
is
playing a
a
role.
whole different beast. I have no idea what's going on in the UK, to be honest. I need more people from the UK to chime in, but from my perspective, it makes no sense, and I totally agree. Like Chicken Little just said, the UK makes the US look like a privacy haven, and I really do believe that that's true, absolutely, which is a very concerning thing because the privacy in the US is absolutely terrible. And not only that, but like the US contributes to so many privacy violations all around the world, whether that's through big tech companies or whether that's through like FISA with foreign intelligence and all that stuff. And yet the UK is making is just so much worse right now. Yeah, I don't even understand what is going on, like I said, at all.
There's a reason 1984 was set in the UK, right? No,
Yeah.
I know I've said this before, but yeah, like my wife and I have discussed the idea of possibly moving to Europe someday, and we've thrown around like, what about here? What about here? What about here? And she's got friends in the UK, so like that's one of the few places that she's like, would you ever consider moving to the UK? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like this is not even a discussion. No way. They're the only country that like we do something and they're like, hold my Guinness. Like no, we can do better than that or whatever beer they have over there. So yeah, it's yikes. Okay, I'm also not super familiar with the UK, but one thing real quick, Limitless said, one thing I don't understand, the royal family is looking at all this mess at the so-called prime minister just betraying the laws and doing nothing about it. From what I understand, the royal family doesn't actually have any real political power. Like they have soft power in the sense that like they can like a celebrity basically here in the US. Like they can voice their opinions and people will probably listen to their opinions even when they're not qualified because they're not experienced in that issue. But you know, like they can influence public opinion, but they don't actually have any legal power to get up there and be like, "No, that's not allowed."
I
So,
think they actually do.
do
Although
they?
I think they
I
do
could
have
be
like
wrong.
a veto power for sure in technically in law.
Interesting.
I think there's like an understanding for sure that they don't use it. And it's like it
Okay.
like a lot of their stuff is ceremonial, like it remains in law, but I think a lot of
Kind of like in the
people
US.
in the government would have a problem if they actually did something. So I don't think it ever gets used, but technically it exists.
I could
But
see that.
yeah, I think it's more of a celebrity thing at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely it's I actually remember I took a political science class in college and it made a lot of sense to me because it and this is a little bit off topic, but like it kind of allows people to like separate the politics of the country from the culture of the country, which I think is honestly something America could really use right now is like it gives people the ability to look at like Keir Starmer, for example, and be like, that guy sucks. I hate this guy. He's ruining the country. I don't think that's a hot take, but for the record, I'm just using it as an example. But then also to like, you know, I know she's dead now, but like God Save the Queen, like I love the country, I love the Union Jack, whatever the UK version is. And so like it's actually kind of a really smart idea to have like a culture isn't the right word, but like there's the political side and then there's like this other side that's I don't know. The way it was explained to me, it seemed really smart, and it's like that is kind of cool because it allows you to separate, like I said, like the politics of the country from the national identity. So yeah, I think there's kind of that understanding of like the royal family is really good for tourism, it's really good for business. It does benefit the country in a lot of intangible ways, but they kind of stay out of politics in that sense. So
And I'm just reading a little bit quick about what powers the royal family does have in the UK. It's kind of interesting. They do have that veto power. It's called royal. They can withhold royal assent, I guess. And indeed, they have not exercised that since 1708. And pretty much all experts say, like, you know, if they did, there would be a pretty big crisis. The government might just decide to get rid of the monarchy entirely, which they obviously wouldn't want. But I didn't know this. They also have a different mechanism called Queen's consent or King's consent, and they can vet bills before they're debated at all. And apparently that happens fairly often. Like Queen Elizabeth II, it says reviewed over 1,000 laws using that power and has withheld consent in some cases. So I guess technically, maybe they could do something about it, but now that we've reached this point where it's already, like, in law, it's a little late for for them to do anything about it, unfortunately. But, yeah, it seems like a strange all of the monarchy stuff seems like a very strange system to me, so I don't fully understand it at all.
Yeah. Listen, some random lady in puddles handing out weapons is no basis for a system of government. Sorry, I had to. Before we move on, Dr. Warface said, "Have you guys seen Ready Player One? It feels almost like that." Yeah, I read it. I didn't watch it, but there's definitely it's frustrating because good sci-fi. There's a good quote from Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. The one of the hosts there always says that good sci-fi is only science fiction for a certain period of time. So, I mean, there's definitely, and in good ways too. Like you look at Star Trek, and there's a lot of stuff there that they predicted, like cell phones basically, and touch screens and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, yeah, unfortunately, it'd be nice if more of the good stuff came true and less of the bad stuff. So,
Yeah, wouldn't it?
like the social isolation and all that kind of stuff. But um, yeah, I think we'll move on to the forum updates. So in a minute, we'll start taking viewer questions. So the chat's been really chatty so far, which I really appreciate, and that's awesome. But if you guys have been holding on to any questions, now's the time to go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll circle back to those in a minute. But for now, we're going to check on the community forum, and there were a lot of good threads this week. Had a hard time narrowing it down to just a couple to discuss. But the first one we're going to talk about is that there has been a change to Apple's Hide My Email. So this headline, I think, is just a little bit sensational. It says that they're making it useless. But basically, so Hide My Email, for those who don't know, it's a premium feature if you pay for iCloud. And it's kind of like Simple Login or Addy. It allows you to create multiple email addresses that forward to your inbox. But the thing that they're changing is it used to be that all iCloud emails, both regular and Hide My, went to iCloud.com. But now the Hide My emails are going to go to private.icloud.com, which is going to make them really, really easy to block. Which I already kind of have this issue a little bit with websites. It's like I use Simple Login and I use a custom domain, and sometimes it's something that I'm not super attached to. So I'm like, yeah, I'll use the Simple Login, simplelogin.com or whatever. And they're like, no, you can't use that. But then I'll be like, okay, so I'll switch to my custom domain and it works just fine. Which is weird because they're still the same MX records, right? Like they're still both going to Simple Login, but they're clearly blocklisting it based on the actual address. So personally, I can definitely see that happening for sure, that they're just going to start blocklisting. Because, I mentioned MX records. Like in theory, that's one way. And I've only seen one website so far that did this, but there's probably others. Like in theory, a website could block all Simple Login, right? Or all addy.io because they know that those are forwarding and they're not like real email addresses. They can't do that with the MX records of iCloud, but now they can with private.icloud. So, yeah, I don't know. This really sucked. There's really no. Apple hasn't said why they're doing this. Some people speculated that like maybe they're running out of email addresses. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, it's this really sucks. I don't know. Have you ever used the Hide My Email thing from Apple?
I haven't used Apples myself. Some apps that I've used on my iPhone do the sign in with Apple thing. I've used that on a couple of occasions when signing up via other means would be like a super annoying process depending on the app. Some are just really annoying to sign up for compared to sign up with Apple. But otherwise, I try to use my normal email aliases and my password manager whenever I can, and not do Apples and not do sign in with Apple. It's a bummer though because I do see a lot of people use their current solution as a way to get around exactly those blocks you were saying because you couldn't block at iCloud.com. So the fact that it was all on the same domain really gave legitimacy to all of those private aliases. I remember when the Hide My Email feature first came out for Apple, we talked about it on one of the earlier shows and on our forum that it was a good change that they were kind of consolidating everything on one domain name, and that hopefully Apple doing that would kind of cause a shift in the industry where sites would stop like rejecting these don't email aliases like simple login or whatever like entirely because Apple was officially endorsing it now on the same domain. So if you're not going to be able to stop that service, why would you even bother continuing to maintain those blocks in general? Um, Obviously, nothing like that is going to happen because these at private.icloud.com email addresses are going to be super easy to block, just as easy as any of these other aliasing services. So, yeah, it's a shame that they're doing that. Doesn't really affect me personally, but I know a lot of people that I've seen on the forum. This will impact a lot, and it was a very commonly used feature. So it's a shame that they're changing it for sure.
Part of me wonders now that you mention it, do you think it was being abused? Because I just checked here and it says hide my email is available on every iCloud Plus plan, and the cheapest one starts at $1 a month.
Yeah.
So I wonder if maybe
Uh,
that was part of the reasoning.
it's, I mean, it's certainly possible that that's what they're trying to avoid. I don't know exactly what their motivation is.
Yeah, they
In my
didn't publicly
experience, I
say,
will
so I mean,
say
this speculation.
even $1 a month, that is usually like enough to dissuade most people who are going to use things maliciously because usually people who are going to abuse a service are also very cheap and will never pay even $1 a month for the service. So I don't know,
I mean,
but
that's fair, but I'm also thinking about like professional scammers where it's like $1 a month. Yeah, I'm gonna make that back in the first hour as soon as somebody falls for my scam. So,
yeah, maybe
huh.
I just don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, like I said, they didn't state an official reason, so it's
I mean, the
very
thing is though, like
speculation.
if you're gonna spend money, you could just get a custom domain in most cases. They're almost never blocked in the same way that aliasing solutions are because most services don't want to block like people's work emails basically, and that could be any domain. So using a custom domain is the easiest way to get unlimited emails. So I don't see what impact this would have on like super large organ or operations.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think just to kind of round off that thought, I think our official recommendations for masked email are still like simple login, Addy. There may be another one I'm forgetting, but I don't think hide my was ever one of them. I've had good luck with custom domains, and I like them because they're portable. I know there's some concerns about like couldn't you be more trackable, which I think maybe with the rise of AI, I could see that being a good argument, but I think having the data sovereignty and the portability is probably worth it. And I think there's probably, this is just me speculating, I think there's probably not a lot of automated tracking going on in that sense. So I just don't think it's scalable to make it worthwhile. So,
Mhm.
but um, yeah. And then our other, I'm going to turn this other post over to you because there was a discussion about shelter. And I know we kind of talked about that quite a bit in the Privacy Guides chat, and I believe you said you're working on something as well. So I'm going to let you take this discussion.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on with work profiles, at least in my life at the moment. We've talked a bit about Shelter for a few weeks now because there are some calls to remove it that we've seen on the forum. I think that I personally think that work profiles serve an important purpose on Android. It's very convenient to have more than, I mean, even more than two private spaces. I mean, because you have the new private space feature in Android 16 now, so that creates one basically separate profile you can access from your main profile. Work profiles give you a third, but also there are a lot of Android devices out there where you can't have a private space at all, and so being able to get that second profile within your main profile it's a huge convenience over either creating multiple user accounts or again, some Android phones don't even support that super well. So having that work profile function or ability is still useful to a lot of people, especially I mean, even like we've seen threads from GrapheneOS, for example, on social media talking about like some of the benefits of work profiles. It seems like GrapheneOS's opinion is that they won't be as useful once they build a feature that will allow you to have many more private spaces. Basically, I think that they've said they want to enable a feature that like it lets you have 16 private spaces, which would be great and probably negate the need for a work profile for a lot of people. But that isn't the case at the meantime, and there are use cases to having 3 profiles accessible on your phone at all times that you can independently lock and unlock, etc. But it does annoy me that Shelter and Island are just not the best apps. They aren't like stellar in terms of security. They aren't stellar in terms of cross-profile isolation. And I've been trying to use my Android phone more, and I have not really liked having to use Shelter because I just do not trust it, and I think it could have a lot of problems because it opens a lot of communication between the profiles, which isn't necessary, which I definitely found out the last 2 weeks, and it's not super great. So, yeah, personally, just driven by that frustration with Shelter, I have been working on my own alternative to Shelter, which isn't, I'm not ready to put it out yet, but I have been working on it a lot. I've posted some information to like my GitHub, for example. At the bottom of the Shelter alternative post, I actually linked to it because I did even though I haven't published any releases of that app, I published kind of a comparison between the thing that I'm building and Shelter, mostly to demonstrate that, like, a lot of the things that Shelter does are not strictly necessary. So, I mean, the comparison, like, if you look at that comparison.md file in the repo, for example, um, it's a long document because I've taken a lot of notes so far, and I've looked at a lot of different things in Shelter's source code to try and find out if I should even work on this app as well, and my conclusion was like, "Oh, yeah, actually, there are a lot of things that can be done much better when it comes to work profiles." So hopefully somebody finds that helpful, but at the very least, I will be switching to that, because I will trust it a lot more than Shelter. Um, yeah. That's kinda all I have to say about work profiles. I have also tried to use private spaces a bit, but I haven't used them too extensively. Nate, you said that you use private spaces, a bit more, and maybe you can share some of your experiences of those compared to Shelter.
Yeah, I just started using private spaces recently. I'm kind of doing the whole thing where you put all your proprietary apps in the private space. Um, I've had issues with voice to text, like Duolingo would not recognize that I was talking to it during the voice exercises, which is really frustrating because I know it worked because I could open the camera and I could like film a video, and when I played it back, I heard myself talking in the camera. So like in the private space, so I know it worked, but I couldn't get voice to work for some reason,
Weird.
and but other than that, I mean, it's been pretty smooth. They say not to use it if you rely on notifications, but in my experience, the notifications have been pretty timely. Granted, I don't have a lot of notifications turned on, and I also don't need them to be super timely most of the time. But I really haven't had any issues with the private space yet, other than the Duolingo thing. But I will say, I feel a little bit more not crazy hearing you say that Shelter is maybe not as secure as it should be, because I used to use Shelter. And it's one of those things where, like, when something goes wrong, you can never figure out where it went wrong. Because I used to have a Calyx phone with Shelter, and I had a personal signal and a like a privacy signal for like different things. And one time, I want to say it was the privacy signal, or maybe it was the personal one. But I remember I opened it one time, and all of my contacts were there from the other signal, and like not the conversation themselves, for the record. But it like freaked me out because I was like, oh my God, can people see this? Like, can people see, is there cross content? And as far as I could tell, nobody could. Like, again, it didn't start any conversations, but it's almost like, when you move Signal to a new device and you see all the conversations there, but there's no content there, or maybe that's just me because I'm a psycho who doesn't move content. But it was like that. It was like all the conversations were there. And if I'd have sent a message, it probably would have popped up. But it just like that freaked me out enough to where I was like, I'm not messing with this anymore. Like, that was not cool. So ever since then, I think I switched over to using like Molly and Signal or something like that. Just I started doing things differently. But yeah, that was not a fun experience. That gave me a heart attack. So Yeah, stuff like that. If somebody can fix that, and the reason I never reported it is because, like I said, like who's at fault there? Was that a Calyx issue? Was that a shelter issue? Was that an Android issue? Was that a Signal issue? I don't know, but it was not fun, and there's definitely room for improvement somewhere. So yeah,
Hard to say. I'm
yeah,
hoping eventually GrapheneOS has that private space feature. An advantage of private spaces is that you can create them in secondary users on like GrapheneOS, for example. I guess I don't know how stock Android works. I haven't used it in a while, but um, work profiles you can only make on like your main profile. Um, so I've generally, when I've used Android, I have wanted to have a setup where like I have Google Play services on the main profile and then non-Google stuff in the private space rather than the other way around. But if you do that on your owner profile, the main profile on your phone has like more privileges than all of the secondary users. So I always found that kind of problematic. And I think that's why most people swap it around and keep all their Google Play stuff isolated. But with private spaces, I can do that because I can just have Google Play and the main profile of the second user, and then have a private space separate from the owner stuff. Um,
I
but
know that's how
yeah,
I know that's how
yeah,
Side of Burritos does it. Is he has a like kind of like we would recommend setting up a computer. Like there's your admin account, but then make a secondary user account and do everything in there. He's got a video where that's how he uses Graphene. Is he's got an admin account that he basically never uses. I think he only uses it to like install things and push them to the user account or something like that. It's been a while
hmm
since I've seen the video, but it was
that's been a
interesting.
kind of common setup that I've seen as well.
Cool. Alrighty. Um, did you have anything else to add to that one, or
I don't know if I have too much else to say, um, unless people have questions about any of that stuff. But I'm hoping that we can get away from shelter and use something else. But I guess we'll see if it all works out or not.
for sure? Yeah, that's definitely one of the most powerful things that I like about Android is that ability to have multiple profiles and
Yeah.
work apps and private spaces, and yeah, something you can't do on iPhone, which is super awesome. So, but yeah, I guess with that we'll move into Q&A. Um, I don't think we have much right now because we've been taking questions as we go,
Yeah.
and so normally we start with questions on the forum from paying members, but it looks like there was a brief discussion where just people were because we posted this story. We always post. We try to post the stories as soon or like the. So we try to post a thread as quickly as we can. I just realized my alarm's going off. Apologies.
Well, we try to
Um,
post, these live stream threads middle of the week based on
yeah,
the best story that we've found so far. We were hoping, I think, that GrapheneOS would end up being available, at least in the alpha preview, so I would have a chance to test it out, but I did not get a chance to test it out because it's still not available over the air. So that's a bit different. I think the discussion in that forum thread was basically wondering like when the stable builds will come out. I don't know what GrapheneOS's track record is when it comes to stable releases. I don't think it takes that long, but it might spend a good amount of time in the alpha or beta stages before we get to like a full stable release. I don't Somebody else could remind me of their track record. I just know that they are very quick about getting something out right away, but whether they consider it stable, am less. I'm a bit more fuzzy on.
yeah, I'm not super positive myself because I follow the releases on RSS just so I can keep updated with the project, and I know usually the way they work is like that's their announcement that like they pushed it to alpha or beta or something, and then after a couple days, if nobody has any issues, they push it to the next stage, and then after a couple days, it goes out to public. So I don't know the exact timeline, but yeah, I usually see the announcement. I mean, the announcement's already out, and Android 17 just came out a couple days ago, so they're very quick for sure.
So we got a question here that I think is a good thing to cover really quick. What makes someone think that using a private space to do things privately when they have like a personal email on a separate proprietary profile that you use for like Google and stuff? Of course, this isn't in any way possible with iPhones. On Android, the private spaces are completely separate users, basically. They just show up in the same profile. So there's total isolation between that. The advantage of not doing it the way that I said and putting Google stuff inside the private space or the work profile instead is that you can turn off a private space or a work profile when you're not using it. So that's a good way. That's a commonly uh, used way to limit like how much Google can access at any given time. So it really depends on your goals. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you're trying to do. Mobile phones are not super private in general. I can't stress this enough because they just are tracking machines. There's so many ways that they can be tracked and tied to you, no matter like what you do on them. So there's all sorts of problems kind of inherent to the platform. If you're super concerned about like being tracked by your account or by other apps like Google Play services, there's really not much you can do about that in the same profile. But the reason it's more private is because since those profiles are completely separated, if you have Google Play installed in one of them, it literally cannot even see any of the apps that are installed in the other profile or connect to them in any way, which is I mean, I think that's a huge privacy boost for sure, because it just lets you do things more selectively. With stock Android, it's kind of an all or nothing approach to like you have Google Play services installed and it has to see all of your data basically, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Whereas these profiles give you some separation if you can do that. But it depends on how well you can compartmentalize your stuff because if you need all of your apps to be in the same profile for some reason, then obviously it's gonna have less benefit. So it's kinda comes down to how you use your phone. That's kinda all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. That was summed it up pretty well, I think. I don't know if we have any more questions this week. Last call for questions, folks.
I like this thread on the forum that I just saw, for your consideration, Privacy Nut from The Big Short. I like The Big Short just as a movie a lot. I think it's a really good movie, but I thought that was very funny as well, how Ben Rickard is, like, super privacy obsessed. He won't answer phone calls. He has, like, a million phones, and he's worried about the NSA logging all of them. Um, they just sent a picture of that. I just thought it was funny.
I did not see that movie at all.
Oh, you're missing out. That is a really good movie.
I don't know. Oh, no. I'm thinking of Dumb Money.
Oh, that movie was I mean, that was
I
also
mean,
good. That movie was just okay. It was
I
not The
haven't
Big
seen The Big
Short.
Short either, but I just remember seeing the previews for it, and I'm like, yep, this looks like one I can miss. I have a very limited amount of free time, and I try to dedicate my stupid movies to sci-fi. So
Dumb Money you could probably miss. I mean, that was all GameStop stuff, but
yeah,
The
for
Big
sure.
Short was a good one. And like yeah, in that scene he was like somebody had to call him and he was just like, "You're not supposed to use this number," and he hung up right away. They were saying like you should do that to all your family members who try to message you on like WhatsApp or something. Just say you're not supposed to use this app.
That's honestly one
Make
of the
them
reasons I
contact you.
got. That's one of the reasons I got my stepdad on Signal because I have a my pseudo number specifically dedicated for Signal, and he would constantly. He actually had two different numbers because I had one for Signal, and then I had a separate one for like friends and family that don't use Signal for whatever reason. And when my mom passed away, he basically took over her phone for like reasons, and basically his phone broke. Long story short, and so he started using my mom's phone, but he didn't know how to use Signal, and so he would like call me on both of those numbers. And so, among many reasons, that's one smaller reason I got him on Signal is because I got tired of getting his phone call from like two different number or like he would call me on like either number, and it's just like, oh my, just here, use Signal. Everybody's on Signal. Do everything on Signal.
Maybe it's a good
Which has worked out
strategy.
great now. So now he's in the family group chat with the rest of us, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it was yeah.
Without any more questions, we can probably wrap things up, I would
I
say.
think so. Yeah. It's been a good week.
Do you want to take the outro or should I?
Um, Up to you. I'll take it. You did
All
the
right.
intro. So all the updates from This Week in Privacy will be shared on the blog every week, so sign up for the newsletter or subscribe with your favorite RSS reader if you wish to stay tuned. For people who prefer audio, we offer a podcast available on all podcast platforms and again, also on RSS. And this video will be synced to PeerTube. Privacy Guides is an impartial nonprofit organization that is focused on building a strong privacy advocacy community and delivering the best digital privacy and consumer technology rights advice on the internet. If you want to support our mission, you can make a donation on our website at privacyguides.org. To make a donation, click the red heart icon located in the top right corner of the page. You can contribute using standard fiat currency via debit or credit card, or you can donate anonymously using Monero or your favorite cryptocurrency. Becoming a paid member unlocks exclusive perks like early access to video content and priority during the live stream Q&A. You'll also get a cool badge on your profile in the forum and the warm fuzzy feeling of supporting independent media. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll be back next week.
See you, everyone.